everyone. So room's all cleaned up, harvest is all done. Sorry I didn't get you guys a video on that pre-harvest. Just totally slipped my mind and I got started in here. Like I said in the last video, I had a couple plants that were showing me a little bit of wilt. Kind of just signified to me like, hey, just go ahead and take this room down. We're pretty much ready anyways. You know, what's 2 or 3 extra days of senescence going to do for these plants? So I went ahead and yanked them. But here we are, room's pretty much clean, about 95% of the way clean. I got a couple little things here and there left to clean up, but I did have a couple requests in here asking me about the build out in this room. So that's pretty much what this video is going to be about, exactly how this room is built. You can get 95% of these things at Home Depot and save yourself some money on, you know, on the overpriced stuff at the hydro store essentially, and pretty much get yourself an efficient grow room at cost, at a pretty decent cost. So the whole purpose for this room is that I wanted to try a couple of different techniques and a couple of different irrigation methods, and you know, stress tests, temperature tests, lighting tests, all the tests that we can do. Now, is this room perfect? No, but is it efficient enough to be able to let me run those tests, you know, accurately to an extent? Yes. So, and during the summer, is it a little bit harder because it's a little bit hotter and this room is a little bit harder to maintain a cooler temperature during the summer. During the winter, I have zero problems. You know, it's just these 2 months in the middle of the summer, July and August, that are really kind of just giving me the most gruff, you know, maybe late June. But anyway, besides that point, I needed a room to be able to do something to try these things out, so that way I'm not affecting the outcome at our larger facility, and I don't risk ruining an entire room at the larger facility by running these stress tests and seeing exactly what it is that is gonna happen to these genetics. Also, to make sure that the genetics that we are running are gonna work with the program that I'm intending to run and bring over to the big facility. So anyway, let's get into the build out of this room. Okay, so these tables are essentially 4 by 12 foot tables, and they're made out of strictly 2x4s. So it's going to be 12 foot 2x4s going along the edge here, and then we're going to have 4 foot slats going underneath this this roof shilling here, shingles, whatever you want to call them, corrugated roofing if you want to be technical. So underneath there, and normally what I would do is put plywood on top of them, so that way they have that extra support and we don't get any stagnant water sitting or any bowing going on in the corrugated roofing. But since we are in hardwoods and hardwood floor in here, and I didn't want to put extra pressure than what was already going to be on there, I decided to skip out on the plywood and I just ran extra 2x4s. So if you see here, so there's a 2x4 here, and then there's a small gap, and then there's another 2x4, small gap, and then another 2x4. So normally I would just run a 2x4, maybe a 2x4 and a 2x4, and just have myself 2 foot gaps all the way down, and then put the plywood. But I ran a couple more down there in order to give it that extra support. Okay, so that's basically the framing of that. If you guys have ever framed a wall, you know exactly what that looks like. And then you can see the 4 legs, 1, 2, 3, 4. There is a 1/4 inch drop on each, a 1/2 inch drop on each of these legs here. So it's every one of them is a 1/2 inch lower, so that way there's a gradual slope on these tables. So you need about a 1/2 inch of slope per meter, if that's the exact math, I think, in order for water to flow smoothly. So that's what I did. And normally I would build these tables a lot taller, so that way they're easier to work on. You know, I like to build them knee high, 2 feet high or so that way when I work, I'm working here instead of having to reach all the way down here in order to do the work. But since these ceilings are only 8 feet, which I know most of you guys are going to be dealing with 8-foot ceilings, you have to just build your tables a little bit shorter. So max here, I think I have these here at exactly 12 inches, if not even shorter than that. I think it might even be 11 and a half inches, and then half inch down, half inch down, half inch down till the end. And then on top of the framing that's underneath the corrugated roofing is like 6 mil plastic, which you can also get at Home Depot. It's pretty cheap. I think you can get a 100-foot roll for 60 bucks, 50, 60 bucks. And you just get the thickest one that you can find, and then just double layer it, so that way it just has that extra sturdiness to it. And staple it down, make it nice and smooth as you can, and that's pretty much it for that. The only thing that you're gonna have to make sure is at the end here. So I run a rain gutter all the way along the edge here, and when you install the plastic, you have to make sure that the plastic is going into the rain gutter in order to not have leaks. Now, in the past, what I've done is I use these corrugated screws here. Hold on, let me see if I can pull you one out real quick. Hold on a second. So, I would usually use these galvanized roofing screws here, and you can see I even added a little bit of extra silicone on top of this one, just to make sure that it's even more leak proof. But essentially they have a little rubber gasket here. This is an old one that I took off. They have a little rubber gasket here, so when you drill them in, they won't have any leaks to them. Well, in theory, you know, they're not perfect. It's all mechanical, so you just gotta hope that it actually holds. But what I used to do is I would run multiple screws in here, so like that. But what I've noticed is that over time, the gasket on them tends to disintegrate. So I stopped doing that. And see, like here, you can even see these holes where I had them in the past. So, but what I do now is I just screw them right here to the edges and just go around, just around the edges. And this is kind of a little loose here. But once I get the plants on there and all that pressure sits on them, they sit just fine. So as far as the corrugated roofing, those are 12-foot slabs. They're, I think, 12 by 2. Yeah, I think they're 12 by 2, if not 2.5. And I just overlap them in the middle, so that way there's no leakage, and we have that extra support in the middle to make sure that they're interlocked into each other. And just screw those in with the galvanized screws. Pretty simple, you know. This is tried and true. I've been doing this for over a decade, this exact same way, and I've never had a problem. So the only problem, like I said, is that I would put too many screws in here, and over time you would start getting leaks because of the fact that the gaskets start going after a while. So just go ahead and avoid that, you know what I mean? And just put them around the edges, and they should be just fine. Especially if you guys do put the plywood underneath the corrugated roofing, you're gonna be golden. So, I mean, other than that, all the windows and any other coverings that I needed, I just covered with Panda paper. You guys know what Panda paper is. It's pretty ubiquitous in the industry. And so the drainage, like I said, rain gutter goes into this bucket here, and in this bucket is a sump pump, and that sump pump is set on a timer to go off simultaneously, usually with my waterings. If not, I wait till like a minute after, and I just have them run for a minute or two and make sure that it fully clears out the water in there thoroughly. And you guys can see, like, I just cleaned this room, so all the shit drained in there, so that needs to get fully rinsed out. Ideally, you would want this to be outside of your room, but when you have to make do with what you make do with, then you do what you got to do to get it done. And you just make sure that that sump pump is consistently running, one, so you don't get a leak, and two, just to keep that thing, not consistently, but there's just in intervals that are going to keep clearing it out throughout the day. So that way there's, especially when you're running your dehumidifier, that way you can get that water cleared out constantly throughout the day. So that's pretty much it for the tables. And then of course this is just 3/4 inch PVC pipes that I use for the trellis. And the easiest way that I found it is just getting 2 construction screws and plugging them in there. I used to put old pipe holders on there, but I realized that they just don't hold the pole quite as stable. So I went ahead and just got rid of that and just directly screwed into the 2x4 that's on the side right there, and that works. They're a lot more stable that way. They don't really move around, and they don't give any slack. All right, so irrigation. I guess we can get into irrigation and exactly what it is that we got running here. So we have right here is a 64-gallon trash can, also from Home Depot. Pretty cheap, I think 60-70 bucks is what I spent on this. And then I have a 50-gallon smaller trash can here that is used for our main mixing chamber. Also gonna get all this bleached out and cleaned up, so don't worry about that. But just for now, before I do all that stuff, before I get any plants in here or anything, I just wanted to show you exactly what was going on. So also 2 little giants in here. So there's 1 little giant here, 1 little giant in here, and this is essentially going to fill this thing up as I mix, and we're going to feed directly out of here. So this is a gallons per hour, or just a gallons measure in general, just so I can see exactly how much water is going in here. So that way, if there is any extra water in here, I'll be able to compensate with my nutrients and mix correctly in case I'm leaving or I'm not going to be around the next day or night to be able to fill it while it runs out. So this is hooked up to a reverse osmosis system that is on a ball valve that is hooked up under my sink in the bathroom, and that runs through the wall, comes through 1/4 inch micro tubing into here, fills this thing up, and just constantly keeps this thing filled with reverse osmosis water. We don't mix in here, we don't put anything in here. This is just a freshwater tank for whatever is necessary. And then this manifold here kind of just lets me access all the water that is necessary. So like I said, this thing is hooked up to the gallons, exactly my gallon measure, and that goes into a ball valve spigot. So that goes into here. It has one, gives me access to, in case I ever do have to mix in here, I can turn it on and it's going to come out here, keep this water mixing. It's going to show me my measurement here, and if I want to close that, then I'm going to come on this side and turn this one on, and this is essentially going to fill this thing up, and I can mix in here while this thing's filling up. This last one is going to be attached to a hose that runs underneath the table and comes out in the center right there, so that way I can hand water whatever it is I need to hand water, and I don't have to worry about having to move anything around on this side of the room once I get in there and start hand watering. So that's pretty much the setup there. It's super simple, guys. It's just one PVC, couple ball valves, and you have essentially control of everything by a turn of a valve and a plug of a pump. So that's plugged in there. So pretty much all of this stuff is you can get at Home Depot. Super cheap, super simple. And we are running these Little Giants. The Little Giants are the only thing I don't think they have at Home Depot. I had to get those online, or they do sell them at your local hydro store. They're anywhere from 100 to 150 bucks, depending on what it is that you're going to spending. So I'm using 3 of them, one for the fresh water, one for the feed, and one for my drainage. Okay, so this feed pump is hooked up to this is just a quick disconnect here, and then we have a check valve here. And this check valve is necessary if your reservoir is going to sit above your plant's destination. Actually, the last week of this grow, I had this check valve kind of started acting funny, and it got stuck, and I siphoned out half a reservoir into the room over here. It was no fun. So this check valve is completely necessary if you are starting at a higher point, so your whole reservoir does not siphon out. So that essentially goes under the table, comes up in a cross T there, all into 3/4 PVC, and we pretty much run it to a 1/2-inch riser there. So that's just a sprinkler riser that goes into an octobubbler. And in the octobubbler, the red dots, I believe are 10 gallons per hour, is what they are. And that runs 8 drippers off of that singular one. Now, a lot of people, you can run a filter in line with this to make sure that your octobubblers don't get clogged. I really haven't had an issue with that, but sometimes, occasionally, you do. So if you want to run a filter on the line on your way to the plants, you can do that, and it should be fine. But so yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, what was that? A total of, you're looking at possibly $800 to get this whole room set up to the basics, with the basics, you know. That's everything from Home Depot. So everything that's not from Home Depot, we can go ahead and discuss that. So dehumidifier, actually you can get a dehumidifier at Home Depot, so that should be fine. Dehumidifier, you should be golden. The carbon filter, you're gonna have to get at your hydro store, most likely. And our humidifier, I kind of just DIY'd it and built myself my own dehumidifier. And there's pretty much an evaporator inside of that bucket, and a computer fan, and it runs to this hose, and it's attached to this guy, which is a humidity sensor. So this is going to turn your dehumidifier on when it's too low and turn it off when it's too high. Or turn your humidifier on when it's too low and turn your dehumidifier on when it's too high, once you set your actual set point. So that you can get off Amazon pretty damn cheap, you know what I mean? What else here, guys? Okay, obviously the lights. Obviously the lights you're not gonna get at Home Depot. So these are 645 Lux, the LED Pros, and this is pretty much what I run at all my facilities, besides the new Gavita DE 1900s that I got. We're trying those, and then of course we have our HPS room. But yeah, so the lights, obviously you're gonna have to buy those. MLC is hooked up. I did that myself as well. Again, when you guys become growers, you're kind of just, you become a jack of all trades, you know. You have to learn HVAC, you have to learn electrical, you have to learn plumbing, you have to learn all these things, and just at least be somewhat competent in a little bit of all of them. But yeah, MLC gets hooked up. Good thing breaker box was on the other side of the wall there, so you just hook up a 30 amp breaker and ran that to there, and we're running all the lights off of that. These things only pull about 2.2 amps, 2.5 amps at max, and you know, you're not running them at max the whole time, you're just running them at max during bulk. And then CO2 controller, also another thing you're gonna have to get at the hydro store. Again, look online, you guys can find them pretty cheap. You go on OfferUp, you might even find them a used one even cheaper. Okay, sorry guys, my camera ran out of storage, but anyways, like I was saying, CO2 controller, Only thing you're gonna have to order, get it on OfferUp. You'll probably find it cheap. A lot of people getting rid of them nowadays, so should be super simple. Same thing with your tanks. You're probably gonna have to go to your local hydro store. They're pretty expensive for the tank itself, but for the actual CO2 refill, you're looking at like 15 bucks every week, every 2 weeks, just depending on how much your plants are eating it up. And then we got 4 circulating fans just all around here, moving air, and there's central AC in here, so it pretty much controls it pretty decent. And I moved the thermostat into here, so that way this room is controlling the actual temperature of the whole central AC. But just to give it an extra bump, we went ahead and installed this 12-inch max fan here. And this 12-inch max fan is just directly attached directly to the central AC vent, and it just blows air in here and keeps really nice air circulation going in here. And then there's just a floor fan in between the tables just to kind of keep the air flowing up and under and out of those plants pretty good. So I think that's about it, guys. This is a pretty long video. I didn't think it was going to take this long to break this stuff down, but I was trying to be as in depth and as clear as possible. So if I did miss anything somehow, you guys just shoot me a message down in the comments and let me know. I'd appreciate it. For those of you guys that did make it to the end, I appreciate you guys. Shoot me a like and a subscribe if you found this content useful. And stay tuned. We're gonna fill this room up with plants, and I'm gonna try to keep you guys updated. I'm gonna try this run, guys, to make a video every day, at least a short every day, to make sure that, you know, I can keep on track with you guys every day, instead of, you know, I'll still make the long form weekly updates, but every day I'm going to try to come in and just make a short, just so you guys can see how the growth is and everything that's going on, any funny stuff that's happening, all the mistakes that happen, and all that stuff. You know, I try to show all sides of the garden. But anyway, guys, happy farming. I'll talk to you later. Peace.